20 reasons why I do not believe in evolution. The information contained in this video series reflects my own personal opinions, and it does not reflect the opinions of any other person, any other organization, or any church. Now we're going to begin this lesson with 3 definitions, and they're going to come across as being somewhat complex to many of you, but I do not want you to get discouraged because we're going to keep this at a level that is very easily understandable to everyone. But these first 3 definitions may seem somewhat complex. The first definition we have is of evolution, and that is a change in the gene pool of a population from generation to generation by such processes as mutation, natural selection, and genetic drift. And then the next 2 definitions that we have are actually the ways in which evolution is divided up into two different types or 2 different parts. The first one is macroevolution, which is defined as a major evolutionary transition from one type of organism to another occurring at the level of the species and at a higher taxa. So I do not believe in macroevolution because in that we have one species evolving and changing into another species, into a different species. But I do, however, believe in the last definition that we have, microevolution, and that definition is an evolutionary change involving the gradual accumulation of mutations leading to new varieties within a species. So the key words or key phrase there is varieties within a species. In microevolution, we have such things as the improvement of livestock by breeding in characteristics that we want. We have that in cattle. We have that in with racehorses. We have that with pets, with dogs. You know, the French poodle was not, believe it or not, was not always around, but that was a breeding process that we went through in order to obtain desirable characteristics in the dog species. So I do believe in microevolution, and I do not believe in macroevolution. I can believe in microevolution if it can be verified with experimentation and repeatable data. I do believe in microevolution if it is not dependent upon scientific opinions and extrapolations. But I do not believe in macroevolution because, first of all, it consists of mutations which occur over very long periods of time, and it develops into new taxa. It develops, one species becomes a different species altogether. I do not believe in macroevolution because it does not comply with all of the steps in the scientific method. And when we get to reason number 1 why I do not believe in evolution, we're going to talk about that reason, that how it does not comply with the scientific method. And I do not believe in macroevolution because experimentation and data are impossible because of the lengthy periods of time involved. We simply cannot perform experimentation and collect data if that experiment requires millions of years to complete. And I do not believe that macroevolution, because I believe that it is a pseudoscience. I believe it is a philosophy, and I believe it is a religion, but that it is not a true science. Now, the evolutionist that's listening to this video, he's going to get all bent out of shape because he doesn't like to think that he's religious. He likes to think that he's intellectually superior, that he doesn't believe in things that he cannot see, that he only believes in facts, scientific facts. But my friend, no one has ever seen, or no one has ever completed in the lab of taking that which is inorganic and turning it into something living. So you have to take by faith that happened at some point in time, that which was non-living become living in the very primary, elementary beginning of evolution. You take that by faith. You take by faith that the processes of that lily pad that's related to the elephant. You take by faith many of those steps. So you can't prove it. You just believe that it's there. And that is the definition of faith. That's the definition of religion. And whenever there's an assault on your religion, you're going to try to come up with arguments against what I say here, and that's natural. I expect it. But it is our religion, and you must defend it. You will defend it. And I can't believe in macroevolution because it is dependent upon previous scientific opinions and speculations, extrapolations. It is speculation built upon previous speculation. If the previous opinion, if the previous speculation is flawed, then all subsequent opinions that are built on it are most probably flawed, inherently flawed, because they're built upon the foundation that is flawed. So when you have extrapolation built upon extrapolation, your likelihood of bringing in false information is greatly increased. The more embedded you become in speculation and extrapolation, the more prone it is to being filled with errors. So why is the theory of evolution so popular? Well, let's take a look at a few possible reasons. One of them is because man has not been able to come up with a better alternative to evolution that sounds scientific. The second reason might be that it's so popular is because we all want a scientific explanation of why and how things have occurred. I'm a creationist, but I still want to understand and have knowledge of the world around me. I believe that evolution is false, but I must admit that it does lend itself to many different fields of science, even though evolution itself is not scientific. And again, we're going to see why I'm able to say that in the reason number one. The problem is that the theories of evolution must constantly be modified to coexist with new findings, and we're going to take a look at several occasions when this has occurred, when we get into these 20 different reasons of why I do not believe in evolution. Evolution is, nothing has ever evolved more than evolution itself, the study of evolution, because it is always in a state of flux. It's always in a state of change because it is not a solid science. It's built upon extrapolation upon extrapolation upon idea upon idea, but it is not a pure, true science. And then it's popular, evolution is popular because it strokes the egos of those that are intellectually arrogant. Again, they like to think that they're scientific and that they're not taking things by faith, but there are many, many things that they hear their preachers tell them, and they take those things by faith. They just believe it because it sounds so good. And then evolution is popular because man does not want to admit that there is a God. And then there's probably many other reasons why evolution is so popular. So let's take a look at the 20 reasons of why I do not believe in evolution. Now these reasons are not presented in an order where number 1 is more important than number 20, or number 20 is more important than number 15, what have you, but they are presented in a sequence or an order which I think will provide for the best flow of the presentation. So reason number 1 that I do not believe in evolution is I don't think evolution is really a true science. Macroevolution should not even be considered as a science because it does not comply with the requirements of the scientific method. The 4th step in the scientific method states that the hypothesis will be tested by performing experimentation. The experimentation must produce repeatable data. The experiments and data produced must be achievable by other scientists, not just achievable by the person who formed the original hypothesis. I consider macroevolution to be a pseudoscience because the hypotheses of microevolution cannot be tested. It would take millions of years for the experiment or the experimentation to be completed. It just cannot be performed because of the millions of years involved in the experimentation. The millions of years concept to the evolutionist is both their excuse and their explanation for everything. As an explanation, they say that anything is possible if you give it enough time. As an excuse, the millions of years is that you cannot perform the experiment or the hypothesis because it would take too long to do it. So the millions of years phrase is both their explanation and their excuse for everything. It is their explanation and their escape for everything. Evolution, you see, is the perfect lie. It is a mixture of both truths and lies. I told you a while ago I believe in microevolution because it deals with changes within that species, like livestock breeding. So it has some truth mixed in with it, but it is more lies than it is truth. Evolution is a perfect lie because the best lies are told by people who do not know that they're lying. They believe what they're saying themselves. It's the perfect lie because it's difficult to separate the elements that are true from the elements that are false. It's a perfect lie because the believers in the lie will repeat the lie and convince others that it is the truth. The perfect lie can make the most ridiculous exaggerations seem acceptable. You see, Mother Goose used to say once upon a time in a land far, far away, but the evolutionist says millions of years ago, and everybody believes it and accepts it and receives it readily. The second reason why I don't believe in evolution is because I have no confidence in their dating methods. I believe their dating methods are inaccurate and unreliable. In this chart, we've shown their attempt to date the age of the Earth using 5 different methods. In the first method, they determined that the age of the Earth was 500 million years old. Second method, they determined the age of the Earth was 20 million to 100 million years old. And then in the third method, the same person, Lord Kelvin, using the laws of thermodynamics, changed his mind and decided that the age of the Earth was actually between 24 to 40 million years old. And then in the fourth method they determined that the age of the Earth was 1.64 billion years old. And likewise in the fifth method, they determined that the age of the Earth was 4.5 billion years old. Now the evolutionist, he wants as much time as he can get because, remember, their idea is that anything is possible if given enough time. So of these 5, which would you guess that they like the most? Of course they like the fifth method because it gives them the widest window of opportunity for evolution to occur. But if you compare these calculations one to another, you get an idea of how inaccurate they are. If you compare number 1 to number 5, you see a variance of 900%. Compare number 2 to number 5, you get a variance of 4,500%. Number 3 compared to number 5, you get a 4,100% variance. And if you compare number 4 to number 5, you get a 274% variance. So let me ask you this. If you ordered a door for your car and it come in almost 3 times bigger than the door that was on your car, would that be acceptable to you? Would that be a close enough, tight enough tolerance for you to accept that door? Well, that's exactly what they're doing whenever they say that the age of the Earth has a variance of 2.74 times the calculation compared from 5 to 4. So these tolerances to me these numbers to me are all over the place and represent having no accuracy whatsoever. Another method of showing how unreliable the dating methods are is the Kensington runestone. This stone was found in Minnesota in 1898, and it was interesting because it had Scandinavian writings on it that contained the date of 1362. So the question becomes, were these writings on the stone older than 1898? Because if they were actually aged to be 1898, then they were fabricated by the man that found the stone. So the question becomes, were they older than 1898? And then the question is was the stone genuinely created on 1362 as the date implied that was on the stone? So in 2001, a team of experts led by Barry Hansen determined that the date of the stone of 1362 was an accurate date. This determination caused turmoil because it precedes Christopher Columbus by more than 100 years. It was not what the general public nor what scientists wanted to hear. So scientists today continue to disagree on the date of the stone. Now, if they cannot agree on something that is less than 700 years old, how can they expect you and I to have any confidence in anything they say that's in the context of millions of years ago? Another example of their inability to determine the age or to date anything is the coelacanth fish. I know I'm mispronouncing it, but bear with me. So this fish was determined to have been extinct for 65 million years. It would have been bad enough if they had just said that the fish was extinct, but they didn't stop there. They said that the species of fish had actually been extinct, and they placed a date on that and determined that that date that the fish had been extinct was 65 million years. Well, imagine their surprise when in 1938 they found one of these fish doing well and alive, and they are still alive today. So the question becomes then, how did they come up with this ridiculous number of the fish having been extinct for 65 million years? Another example of their inability, I believe, to date anything is in the summer of 2012 in the city of Dallas, Texas, where I live close by. We experienced the highest number of West Nile infections and deaths that had ever been recorded. A year and even 3 or 4 years later, the experts still do not know why the infections by mosquitoes have increased so dramatically. Is it not strange that they cannot explain what is happening in the current time frame, but they can tell you with most assured confidence that the mosquitoes evolved from the housefly 200 million years ago? Well, I have a disconnect with that. I can't believe that if they can't tell me something in the current time frame, I have no confidence in what they tell me in millions of years, especially 200 millions of years. The third reason why I do not believe in evolution is that information that's fabricated by extrapolations from other misinformation only leads to more levels of misinformation. If the dating methods that we discussed in reason number 1 are flawed, then everything based upon those dating methods is also most probably inaccurate. A massive number of hypotheses exist regarding what might have happened millions upon millions of years ago. These ideas are readily and quickly accepted by evolutionists because they fit the evolution model. It is also quickly accepted because it's easier to accept a new hypothesis than it is to collect information to refute it. Millions of years ago, as we discussed earlier, is both the explanation and also the excuse for everything within the evolution model. As an explanation, the millions of years ago phraseology says that anything is possible in the scope of a millions of years. I said another way is that anything is possible if given enough time. And as an excuse, the evolutionists just cannot provide and perform the experimentation that should be performed to prove evolution because it would take too long. You cannot perform experiments that will take millions of years to complete. So the millions of years ago concept is both an explanation and an excuse for everything. Notice I'm saying an excuse. It's not the reason, because I believe that evolution is a false scientific theory, but it is an excuse for everything. Now let's discuss a liquid and a solid science. These are my definitions, and I don't know how well accepted they're going to be, but at any rate, in my opinion, a solid science complies with the scientific method, and it is not frequently reshaped. On the other hand, a liquid science does not comply with the scientific method, and it is reshaped frequently or reconfigured frequently to comply with new facts that are found. Some example of the liquidity, some examples of the facts that have caused the evolutionist to rethink or reshape his model is the fact that man evolved from ape. That used to be a real popular idea and a convincing piece of evidence that evolution is a true model. However, many evolutionists have had to rethink that due to information that has come on the scene in the past few decades. So the second piece of evidence that I'd give to the fact that evolution is a liquid science is the origin of life. Scientists still today, as knowledgeable as they pretend to be, and I do believe that science is wiser than they've ever been in the past, but as knowledgeable as they pretend to be, they still cannot create something living from something non-living. So for this reason, some evolutionists want to start the evolution model sometime after the initial existence of life. So that's not the way that Darwin described it in his books on evolution, but they do wish to change the model, some of them, because they can't create life. And to me, that is a huge, as a matter of fact, it's going to be like my number one reason for not accepting the evolution model. We'll discuss that in more detail later on. But science cannot take that which is non-living and create life from it, no matter how much chemistry, no matter how much biology, no matter how much science they apply to it. They just simply cannot do it. So another example of the liquidity or the need to reconfigure the model of evolution is mitochondrial Eve. We'll discuss that in more detail later on. And also Y-chromosomal Adam. We'll discuss those two subjects later on in more detail. The fourth reason why I do not believe in evolution is that science has been wrong in the past and is flexible by its very nature. We've already demonstrated one way in which science is flawed, and that was in reason number one whenever we discussed the unreliability of their dating methods. Later on in these reasons that we're displaying for you, we'll see how that the definition of species is incorrect, or the classification, the taxonomy method is also flawed and is incorrect. Some scientific ideas that have been proven incorrect in the past are the flat earth theory, alchemy, which is the converting of metals into gold, geocentric theory, which is the earth is at the center of the universe, the blank slate theory, which says that everyone is born without any built-in personality traits, the idea that the earth is expanding in size. The size of the universe is constant. They believed that it was neither increasing or decreasing in size. Another false idea of science was that light always travels through substances through luminiferous ether. The phlogiston theory says that substances that burn freely in air are rich in a substance called phlogiston. The spontaneous generation idea, that living things are spontaneously created from other biological material. Abiogenesis, which says that living organisms can occur from non-living chemical reactions. And the evolutionists would love to believe in abiogenesis, but that is proven over the years when they've tried to create life from inorganic material that they would love for that abiogenesis idea to work, but it just simply has not worked. Scientific mistakes that have recently been discovered, some of those are Newton's theory of gravity, which is generally correct, was proven by Albert Einstein to be flawed under certain circumstances. Also, Einstein's theory of relativity believed that it was impossible for anything to travel faster than the speed of light, but research by the CERN lab near Geneva claimed that they had recorded neutrinos traveling faster than light. Also, recent studies have found that the proton is much smaller than originally believed. This discovery may lead to revolutionize the study of quantum mechanics. Also, DNA science has discovered that we have all descended from common mother, mitochondrial Eve. We've also descended from a common father, Y-chromosome Adam. Also, man did not evolve from ape. There is a chromosome pair of separation. Evolutionists are scrambling to find an acceptable excuse to explain this. Also, multi-generational hypothesis was a scientific model that explained that paths taken by human evolution The study of mitochondrial Eve proved this to be another scientific error. The fifth reason why I do not believe in evolution is that the fossil record is too weak. There's too many holes, there's too many gaps. As a matter of fact, there's more holes and more gaps than there is actual fossil records. Darwin himself admitted that the huge missing fossil record was a weakness in his own theory. If evolution had happened in small incremental steps, then the fossil record should support this massive number of evolutionary steps. It is impossible to know how many evolutionary links should exist because the evolutionist does not know how many steps supposedly occurred. If 10,000 species of animals each mutated only 10 times, which is an extremely low number of times for a complex organism, then there should be 100,000 links. We would probably never find all of the links, but a 1% number seems to be a reasonable expectation. Scientists to date have been unable to locate many and most of these fossils. And to support that statement, you might go to the URL link that we have given here if you want to study that at some point in time. The fact that so many links are missing points to the fact that the chain never even existed. Many fossils that are initially identified as being missing links are later determined to not be thusly related. And if you want more detailed information on that statement, we've also provided another link for you to go to and do your own research and study. Exercise caution when you use the term missing link. The evolutionist will say that there isn't really any such thing as a missing link. But then they'll turn right around and say, but many missing links have been found.